my mom said. Venue capacity is strict. It's too chaotic for your kids. I said, okay. Then I saw the live stream. My neighbor's teenage son was doing a keg stand on the lawn of the estate I paid for. My sister was laughing in the background. My kids, who had spent all week making cards for their grandmother's ruby anniversary, were sitting on my couch asking why Grandma didn't want them. I didn't plead for an invite. I didn't ask to see the guest list. I just picked up my phone, took a screenshot of the live stream, and texted, returning these today. Before we see how they handle losing their sponsor, drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I'd love to see who's part of this community. 40 minutes later, I was standing in the quiet, climate-controlled air of the luxury boutique downtown. It smelled like expensive leather and old money, the kind of atmosphere my parents had spent 40 years trying to replicate. The sales associate remembered me. Of course she did. I was the one who had come in 3 months ago, agonizing over the perfect gift for a 40th anniversary. I was the one who had put down a deposit on a vintage Cartier Tank Watch gold, leather strap, understated elegance, $9,400. Miss Morgan, she smiled, already reaching under the counter. Here to pick up the final package? We wrapped it in the gold paper you requested. Actually, I said, my voice steady, I'm here to return it. Her smile faltered. Oh, is there a problem with the piece? No problem with the piece, I said. Just a problem with the recipient. It turns out the venue capacity for my family is very strict this year, too chaotic for expensive gifts. I watched her process the refund. It took 3 minutes. 3 minutes to undo months of saving, sacrificing, and planning. When the receipt printed, the sound was sharper than I expected. $9,400 credited back to my account. I didn't stop there. I pulled up the spa reservation on my phone, the full-day package for my mother and sister the morning after the party. Cancel. Refund. Confirm. I took a photo of the refund receipt. I opened the family group chat, which was currently flooded with photos of the exclusive anniversary gala. My aunt was posting about the elegant atmosphere. My sister Brianna was posting selfies with the caption, Legacy. I attached the photo of the receipt. I typed 3 words. Removing the chaos. Send. Then I blocked my mother. I blocked my father. I blocked my sister. I drove home in silence. My phone started vibrating against the passenger seat within 30 seconds. It buzzed and buzzed, an angry, insistent insect trying to break through the glass. I didn't look at it. I didn't answer. I just drove, feeling the weight of $9,000 lifting off my chest and settling back into my bank account where it belonged. When I got home, my kids were asleep. The house was quiet. I sat at my kitchen island and poured a glass of water. My hands weren't shaking. My heart wasn't racing. I felt cold, clinical, like an architect staring at a building that had been condemned. I looked at the counter. Sitting there, next to the bowl of fruit, was a key fob. Black, sleek, heavy. The spare key to the Range Rover Velar my parents were currently driving to their gala. I picked it up. The metal was cool against my skin. For years, I had told myself I was helping. I was the good daughter. I was the reliable one. I was the architect of their comfort. But sitting there in the silence of my own kitchen, I realized the truth. I wasn't their daughter. I was their financier. I was the silent partner in the business of their image. And the thing about silent partners is, they can pull their funding at any time. I stared at the key. This wasn't just a car. It was their identity. It was the vehicle they used to drive to the country club, to church, to their friends' houses to brag about their successful lives. It was a $58,000 billboard that screamed, "We made it." Except they hadn't made it. I had. I took a sip of water. I unlocked my phone, bypassing the 47 missed call notifications from my father. I opened my banking app again. I scrolled down to the auto loan section. Range Rover Velar. Primary borrower, Morgan. I tapped the details. Co-borrower, none. I had bought it in my name because their credit was shot after my dad's last failed business venture. They promised to make the payments. They promised it was temporary. That was 3 years ago. I had made every single payment. 36 months of $840. I looked at the holes in my boots by the door. Literally. My work boots, the ones I wore to construction sites for my interior design business, had a crack in the sole I'd been meaning to fix for 6 months. But I never had the extra cash. Because every extra dollar went to the Range Rover fund, or the anniversary fund, or the mom needs to look good for the neighbors fund. It's funny how the mind works. For years, I thought this was love. I thought sacrifice was the currency you paid to be part of a family. I realize now it wasn't love. It was a subscription fee, and they had just canceled my membership. But they forgot one thing. They forgot who held the admin password. I picked up the key again. I didn't throw it across the room. Emotional outbursts are messy, and I don't do messy. I do precision. The boiling frog. That's what they call it. If you drop a frog in boiling water, it jumps out. But if you put it in cold water and slowly turn up the heat, it cooks to death without ever knowing it's dying. They had been turning up the heat on me for decades. A little favor here. A loan there. A guilt trip about how much they sacrificed raising me. A comment about how Brianna needed more help because she was sensitive. I had normalized the cruelty. I had accepted that my role was to give and their role was to take. I had believed them when they said I was difficult or intense whenever I asked for basic respect. But tonight, the water had boiled over. I wasn't the frog anymore. I was the chef, and I was closing the kitchen. I pulled out a fresh sheet of paper. I wrote down the VIN number of the Range Rover. I wrote down the license plate. I wrote down the address of the lakefront estate where the party was currently happening. Then I picked up my phone and dialed a number I had looked up 10 minutes ago. City Towing and Recovery, a gruff voice answered. "Hi," I said, my voice calm and pleasant. "I need to request a tow for a vehicle I own. I have the title and registration in hand. It's currently at a private event, and the drivers are unauthorized." "Unauthorized use?" the dispatcher asked. "You want us to repo it?" "Yes," I said. "Tonight, right now, in the middle of the party." There was a pause on the line, then a chuckle. "We can do that. What's the address?" I gave him the address. I gave him the details. "Driver will be there in 45 minutes, he said. "Thank you," I said. "Please be careful. The people who have it, they can be a bit dramatic." I hung up. I looked at the clock. 11:51 p.m. Happy anniversary, Mom and Dad. The morning sun hit my kitchen counter, illuminating the empty space where the spare key used to be. I poured my coffee, the silence of the house feeling heavy and luxurious. For the first time in years, I wasn't waking up to a panic attack about which bill needed to be paid to keep my parents' facade from crumbling. I opened my laptop. Since I had blocked their numbers, they had resorted to the one channel I couldn't fully close off. Email. Subject. Final notice regarding your status in this family. Sent. 2:43 a.m. I took a sip of coffee, feeling the warmth spread through my chest, and clicked it open. "Morgan, your behavior yesterday was a display of narcissism and cruelty that we can no longer tolerate. Returning a gift meant to celebrate our legacy is unforgivable. You have made it clear that you do not value this family. Therefore, until you issue a public apology and replace the funds you stole, you are no longer welcome in our lives. We have one daughter now. Brianna understands loyalty." Attached were screenshots of their social media posts from last night, likely posted right before the tow truck arrived. A photo of Brianna holding a glass of champagne, captioned, "The only one who truly appreciates our sacrifices. Our legacy is safe with her." I leaned back, studying the screen. The words were designed to hurt. They were crafted to make me panic, to make me scramble for my wallet to buy my way back into their good graces. But all I saw was the autopsy report of a dead relationship. It's a psychological concept called the delusion of power of the empty wallet. My parents had spent 40 years confusing having with being. They believed that because they sat in a Range Rover, they were wealthy. They believed that because they threw a gala, they were respected. They didn't understand that their entire identity was a rental, and I was the landlord. They thought their status was an intrinsic trait, like eye color or height. They thought they could fire me the financier and keep the lifestyle. They didn't realize that without my compliance, their social standing was just a hollow shell. They were standing in a house of cards, setting fire to the foundation, convinced they could float on their own superiority. "Our legacy," they wrote. Their legacy was debt. Their legacy was a leased image. And Brianna, the golden child, she wasn't an heir. She was just the next host for the parasite. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel lonely. I felt the cold, hard satisfaction of a bank auditor closing a delinquent account. I deleted the email. Then my phone rang. It wasn't my parents. It was the towing company. "Miss Morgan?" The dispatcher's voice was tight. "We have the vehicle at the lot, but you need to come down here. The driver found something in the glove box you need to see. And there's a man here claiming he bought this car yesterday." I frowned, the coffee cup freezing halfway to my mouth. Bought it? That's impossible. I have the title. Yeah, the dispatcher said. That's why you need to come down. He's got a bill of sale, and it's got your signature on it. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. I grabbed my keys. This wasn't just a family drama anymore. This was a crime scene. I drove to the impound lot with a strange sense of calm. The panic I should have felt, the "oh God, my father is a criminal" panic, was absent. Instead, there was just clarity. The tow yard was dusty and smelled of diesel and disappointment. The dispatcher, a burly man named Mike with grease under his fingernails, met me at the counter. He didn't smile. "Range Rover Velar," he said, tapping a file on the counter. "Nice car. Shame about the family drama." "You have no idea," I said. "You mentioned a bill of sale?" He slid a piece of paper across the counter. It was a standard DMV bill of sale form, filled out in handwriting I recognized instantly. My father's blocky, aggressive scrawl. Seller, Morgan. Buyer, private party, some guy named Kevin. Sale price, $32,000. Cash. Date, yesterday. And at the bottom, a signature. Morgan. It looked nothing like my signature. It was shaky, hesitant, a desperate attempt to copy the loop of the M from a birthday card I'd sent 5 years ago. "The guy, Kevin," Mike said. "He showed up right after the truck brought it in. Said he bought it yesterday from James at the estate. Paid cash. Said James told him the title was in the mail. When he saw us hooking it up, he tried to block the truck. Said we were stealing his property." I stared at the forged signature. My father hadn't just borrowed the car to look rich at the party. He had sold it. He had sold my car, behind my back, pocketed $32,000 in cash, and was probably planning to report it stolen today to cover his tracks. He was going to let me file an insurance claim for a theft he committed. He wasn't just image-obsessed. He was a felon. "Where is this Kevin now?" I asked. "Outside with the cops," Mike said. "We called them when he started kicking the fence. He's showing them this bill of sale. They're going to want to talk to you." I walked outside. 2 officers were listening to a man in a polo shirt scream about his rights. When they saw me, the yelling stopped. "Are you the owner?" one officer asked. "I am," I said, "and I didn't sell this car." "He said you did," Kevin shouted, pointing a finger at me. "James said you were on board. He took the cash." "Officer," I said, my voice steady, "that is not my signature. I have the title in my hand. I have the loan documents in my name. My father, James, did not have permission to sell this vehicle. This is fraud. And grand larceny." The officer looked at the paperwork. He looked at the forgery. He looked at me. "Do you want to press charges, ma'am?" The question hung in the dusty air. Press charges. Arrest my father. Send him to jail. It was the nuclear option, the point of no return. And then I thought about the text. "Too chaotic for your kids." I thought about the holes in my boots. I thought about Brianna, the golden child, drinking champagne while my father sold my property to fund their lies. "I need a minute," I said, "to make a call." I walked away from the officers. I didn't call my father. I didn't call my mother. I called Brianna. She answered on the first ring, her voice a hushed whisper. "Morgan? Why are you calling?" Mom said not to. "Brianna," I cut her off. "I'm at the tow yard. Dad sold my Range Rover yesterday. For cash. He forged my signature. The police are here." Silence. Dead, heavy silence. "Did you know?" I asked. "Morgan, please," she whispered, and I heard the wobble in her voice. The crack in the golden facade. He said he had to. He said the creditors were coming. He said it was the only way to save the house." "Save the house?" I repeated. "Or save you?" The silence stretched, thin and brittle. "Brianna," I said, my voice dropping, "why did he need $32,000 in cash yesterday?" "Because," she sobbed, "because I'm bankrupt, Morgan. I lost everything 6 months ago. The influencer thing. It's all fake. I have credit card debt you wouldn't believe. The loan sharks. They were calling Dad. He sold the car to pay them off so they wouldn't hurt me." The puzzle pieces slammed into place. The chaos excuse. The exclusion. It wasn't just about my kids being messy. It was about keeping me away so I wouldn't see the car was gone. So I wouldn't ask questions while they desperately tried to cover up the fact that the golden child was drowning in debt and my father had become a criminal to save her. They excluded me to rob me. "I'm pressing charges," I said. "No!" Brianna screamed, Morgan, please, he's old. He'll go to prison. You can't. I can, I said. And I will. Unless. Unless what? Unless you open the front door. Tonight. What? I'm coming over, I said. Not to the estate. To your apartment. Or, wait. You don't have an apartment anymore, do you? You're living with them. The silence was my answer. I'm coming to the house, I said. Pack a bag, Brianna. You're leaving with me. Tonight. Or Dad leaves in handcuffs. They'll kill me, she whispered. No, I said. They won't. Because they don't have a car anymore, and in about an hour, they won't have a daughter either. I hung up. I walked back to the officer. Officer, I said, I'd like to file a report, but hold off on the arrest warrant for 1 hour. I need to retrieve something from his house first. The officer nodded. We'll need to keep the car here as evidence, ma'am. But we can file the forgery affidavit now. I signed the paper. My real signature next to my father's fake one. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like an eviction notice. I was evicting them from my life, from my wallet, and from the illusion that they could use me without consequence. I sat in the dark of my living room, the digital clock on the microwave reading 10:42 p.m. The house was silent, save for the hum of the refrigerator and the rhythmic breathing of my children in the next room. On the coffee table in front of me lay 3 things: the title to the Range Rover Velar, the forgery affidavit signed by the tow yard officer, and the spare key I had retrieved from the impound lot. I was waiting. At 10:45, headlights swept across my front window. A car door slammed, followed by a hesitant knock. I opened the door. Brianna stood there. She wasn't the golden child I had seen on Instagram earlier that day, holding champagne and toasting to legacy. She was wearing gray sweatpants and a stained hoodie. Her face was scrubbed clean of makeup, revealing dark circles and blotchy skin. She held a duffel bag like it was a shield. Come in, I said. She stepped inside, looking around my modest living room like she was afraid the furniture might bite her. I didn't think you'd come, I said, locking the door behind her. I didn't have a choice, she whispered. Dad. He's losing his mind. He called the police on the tow company. He told Mom you hired someone to steal the car. I know what he told her, I said. Sit down. She sat on the edge of the sofa. Morgan, I'm sorry. I didn't want him to sell it. I told him it was yours. But he said it was the only way to fix the debt. How much debt, Brianna? $84,000, she said, the number coming out as a sob. It started with the apartment in the city, then the trips to Dubai for content, then the clothes. I maxed out 6 cards. The creditors started calling Dad's house last week. They threatened to garnish his pension if he didn't pay up because he co-signed on 2 of them. I looked at her. For 30 years, I had envied her. I had envied the way she floated through life while I trudged through mud. I had envied the praise she got for simply existing. Now, I realized I hadn't been envying a person. I had been envying a product that was now defective and recalled. So he sold my car to pay your credit card bill, I said, to keep the illusion alive. He said he'd pay you back, she cried. He said he just needed time. He committed a felony, I said. Before she could answer, another set of headlights flashed in the driveway. High beams. Aggressive. Then the pounding started. Open this door, James screamed from the porch. I know she's in there. You kidnapped my daughter and you stole my car. Open up or I'm breaking it down. Brianna flinched, curling into a ball. Don't let him in, please. I stood up. The affidavit felt light in my hand, but the key felt like a weapon. I walked to the door and threw it open. James and Angela were standing there, red-faced and panting. My father raised a fist to pound on the wood again, but stopped when he saw my face. Where is she? He snarled. And where is my car? Your car? I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. The car you sold yesterday for $32,000 cash, using a forged signature? Angela stepped forward, her pearls trembling. Morgan, stop this nonsense. Give your father the keys. You've embarrassed us enough for one weekend. He committed a crime, Mom, I said. He forged my name on a federal document. He sold property that didn't belong to him. It was a family emergency, James shouted. I did what I had to do. You weren't using it. You're selfish. Now give me the key or I'm calling the sheriff to report a theft. I held up the piece of paper. The porch light illuminated the bold black letters. Affidavit of forgery. I already talked to the sheriff, I said. And the tow company. And the buyer, Kevin. They all have copies of this document. Kevin is very eager to get his money back, Dad. He's pressing charges for fraud. And this piece of paper? It's the only thing standing between you and a grand larceny indictment. James froze. The color drained from his face, leaving him looking old and gray. You wouldn't, he whispered. I'm your father. You were my father, I corrected. Then you became my dependent, and yesterday you became a thief. I stepped out onto the porch, forcing them to take a step back. Here is how this ends, I said. Brianna stays here. You go home. You will figure out how to pay Kevin back his $32,000 without touching my assets. If you step foot on this property again, if you text me, if you email me, or if you try to sell so much as a toaster oven in my name, I will hand this affidavit to the district attorney. Morgan, Angela pleaded, reaching for my arm. Think about our reputation, the neighbors. The neighbors already saw the tow truck, I said. The reputation is dead. Go home. James looked at me. For the first time in my life, he didn't look at me with disappointment. He looked at me with fear. He turned around and walked to his car. Angela followed him, sobbing into her hands. I watched them drive away. Then I went back inside and locked the door. The fallout was swift, silent, and absolute. My father didn't go to jail. I didn't want my children to have a grandfather behind bars. I just wanted him out of our lives. His lawyer advised him to sign the permanent no-contact order I drafted. He signed it in a lawyer's office 3 days later, his hand shaking, his face gray. He agreed to pay Kevin back the $32,000 by liquidating his own retirement account. The legacy he was so obsessed with was now writing checks to cover his crimes. The neighbors at the lakefront estate talked, of course. Gossip in our town moves faster than fiber optics. They heard about the tow truck. They heard about the forgery. The carefully curated image my parents had spent 40 years building didn't just crack, it shattered. They weren't the pillars of the community anymore. They were the people who stole from their own daughter to cover up a bankruptcy. But I didn't stick around to watch the rubble burn. I had something else to build. Brianna stayed. It wasn't easy at first. She had to unlearn 30 years of being a show pony. She got a job as a receptionist at a dental office. It wasn't glamorous. There were no champagne toasts or trips to Dubai. But when she brought home her first paycheck, $600 she had actually earned, she cried at my kitchen table. Not because it was a lot, but because it was real. As for me, I looked at my bank account. The $9,400 from the returned watch. The $840 a month I was no longer throwing into a black hole of a car loan. I didn't just save it, I planted it. There is a concept I read about once called the justice of the planter. Most people think justice is about punishment, about balancing the scales by taking something away from the person who hurt you. And sure, taking back the car felt good. But true justice isn't just about salting the earth where your enemies stand. It's about taking the resources they stole and using them to grow a garden they will never be invited to see. I leased a small commercial space downtown. It had good bones, but needed work, exposed brick, high ceilings, terrible lighting. I spent the next 3 months turning it into the headquarters of Morgan Design. I bought the best drafting tables. I installed gallery lighting. I finally bought myself a new pair of work boots, steel-toed, waterproof, high-quality leather, no holes. Every time I paid a contractor, every time I bought a can of paint, I thought about my parents. They had used my money to buy an illusion. I was using it to build a foundation. I remember standing in the center of the studio the night before the grand opening. The smell of fresh paint and sawdust hung in the air, the smell of creation. My kids were sitting on the floor, drawing on scrap paper. Brianna was helping me hang the sign in the window. For years, I had been the architect of my parents' false life. I had designed their renovations, funded their cars, and propped up their ego. I was the scaffolding that held up a hollow facade. Now, I was the architect of my own reality. I realized that revenge isn't just making them pay, it's making yourself prosper. It's taking the energy you used to waste trying to please them and pouring it into your own soil. My parents were weeds, choking out everything around them to feed their own need for attention. I had finally pulled them out by the roots, and look at how much room there was to grow. The next morning, I unlocked the front door of my studio. The sun hit the glass, illuminating the gold lettering of my name. My real name, not the financier, not the scapegoat, just Morgan. I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. No angry emails, no desperate texts. Just a new client inquiry and a photo from Brianna of my kids eating pancakes. Peace. It turns out it's not expensive. It just costs you the people who don't deserve you. And if you're listening to this, sitting in the dark, wondering if you have the strength to take back your keys, to return the gift, to stop funding the people who hurt you. Let this be your sign. You are not their ATM. You are not their prop. You are the builder of your own life. So, have you ever had to repossess your own life from people who claim to love you? Tell me your story in the comments. And if you're still holding on to a gift they don't deserve, maybe today is the day you return it.